Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Skip, aka Skip and Tosh, here with my man Wes. Say what's up to the people, Wes.
Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody! We're so happy to be with you here with you today. I know a lot of people are taking the day off, but right here on Thinking Critical, we're here 24/7, baby. No days off.
No days off, especially not for Wes. I don't know when he sleeps, but happy Thanksgiving to all of you. If you're outside of the U.S., Wes hipped me to Happy Life Day. So
Happy Life Day from the Star Wars holiday special.
Star Wars holiday special, which I've seen all of like 1.5 times, and when I was much younger, closer to the time that it actually originally came out. But we're talking about Star Wars here on this channel. Check out the Mandalorian stuff that we did. Dylan and I, the Real Comic Book Gamer. But today we're bleeding out. We're outside the bleed, and we're talking about Fallen Angels. Fallen Angels issue number 2. Bryan Edward Hill, Szymon Kudranski. Consider this one a bit of an abbreviated one. We're only going to bleed out so much. We got to stay alive. It's Thanksgiving. But Wes, I'm gonna start it off with you because we had a little pre-stream convo, and you were talking about some of how you felt about it. So go ahead and tell me a little bit about Fallen Angels.
I didn't love the art in the first issue, and I was like, well, sometimes you got to give it an issue or two to marinate. And then I remember this is the guy that illustrated The Punisher, and I hated the art in that. And now I'm starting to see why I don't like it. The characters are real static. Like it feels like mannequins talking to each other, except during the action sequences, which aren't too bad. So I'm not really loving the art. I know you like the art more than I, correct?
I do. I like the art more. It's definitely not my favorite art, but I would say between the advancements that happen in this issue, and then I think the coloring, Frank D'Armata, I believe, is really kind of holding this thing together as far as the visuals are concerned. But I did like a lot of where the camera was placed. I really liked the camera, quote unquote, the camera placement this time around. It was even more cinematic, closer to Bryan Edward Hill's wheelhouse, him being a screenwriter and all. So I did like the camera choices, and I'm a fan of noir, like literally like blacks, not just like the genre, but like blacks, shadows. For anybody who's seen any of my photography, I almost shoot exclusively in black and white, and all my stuff like has very little and low light. So I'm just a fan of that. So I do like that continued thing of like a lot of things being implied and whatnot, not all full shown. I did really enjoy the way that Kwannon, aka Psylocke's physique and figure was shown from the beginning, when she was kind of on like a secret ops type thing, to like when she was in her Psylocke costume. A lot of like the implied stuff and the costume looked really good. So I enjoyed the art, and I actually felt like it was a little bit of less is more. Instead of, like trying so much harder, I felt like they pulled back a little bit more. And I feel like by pulling back and not going for the gusto so much, the art was a lot more digestible. But I totally understand where Wes is coming from. And there was a few places where I saw some very apparent copy paste and only like one thing. I think there was a part where she was talking, and then like she was talking to Mr. Sinister, and then like 2 panels later it was like the same pose, but like her hand was up and there was a butterfly in it, and I was like studying. I was like, oh yeah, that's copy paste right there, baby. Deadlines are deadlines, I get it, but it takes a toll on the people that pay the money for the books. So it's just something to keep in mind. Outside of the art, West, what were some of the other things that you took exception to or was excited about?
I liked the issue 1. I thought it did a good amount of character development for Psylocke, for Kwannon, and then it introduced this interesting villain, Apoth, and it feels like it didn't go anywhere this week as far as the villain goes, and it feels like Hill's putting so much emphasis in work in fleshing out Kwannon Psylocke that he's kind of not given Kid Cable or Young Cable, whatever you want to call him, and Laura very much loving this. In fact, I would say he's kind of regressing Kid Cable. If you read his introduction in Extermination, he's kidnapping like mutants and holding them prisoners and cutting their wings off and stuff. He's kind of a badass. he's not inefficient when it comes to applying his trade, and he's kind of being shown to be maybe naive here, incapable. So it feels like maybe the character's taken a step back, and then X-23 has been her characterization's been so weird over the years. Everyone's like keeps changing her all the time. I thought maybe this time, Bryan Hill would give her some love and maybe really ground the character and give us more of the original version of Laura that we liked. And she's just kind of sitting there in the background. I really wish, you know what I mean?
I mean, I also feel a desire for her to have more of her character carved out. And I agree, after reading issue number 1, we were kind of hopeful for both, with Kid Cable a little bit, and that one got put a little bit more in the background. And we were thinking, okay, well, it's issue number 1. It's not a super long book either. So there's only so much that you can do. Kwannon herself hasn't even been Psylocke for so long. So I went into it with the understanding that he's going to have to invest a lot in Kwannon's character alone to make her relevant again and give her character back. And then, Kid Cable and Laura will get theirs in due time. And I felt where you were coming from, because in this one, it still does feel like, from the beginning of it, when Kwannon, aka Psylocke, was, it seemed like still part of the Hand, basically, and kind of carrying out Hand business on up until we see her more current. I was like, okay, he's still investing in her. There's still a thing with the butterfly and everything, which I really enjoyed. But it is true, like putting so much into her, the villain itself kind of took a backseat up until just about. I don't want to discount some of the other stuff that happened, because obviously Cable had gotten some intel and he wanted to go look into it. So the villain was being seeded throughout that, but until the very last page, we didn't get basically progress with the villain. Mm-hmm. So that I understand where you're coming from with that. With this one, it's tough because even at the beginning of it, as I saw, or I want to say the beginning, but about the midway, when I saw what I guess wasn't going on with Laura and Kid Cable, I was like, you know what? I got a feeling he's going to invest in Psylocke in the first trade. And then the second trade, not go full into just one of the characters, but that's when Kid Cable and Laura equally will both get theirs. And then I remembered we're only going to get Hill to like issue 5 or 6, and then he's got to go do his thing. So I think all in all, I'm starting, like, I feel where you're coming from. I think those points are very valid. I'm still enjoying the overall book so much for what it is that I'm kind of starting to just shift my expectations and kind of know that Kid Cable and X-23 are not going to get as much love as I thought. And I think that's really, like, especially for the Kid Cable thing that you talked about, I think that's overall with all of them. Because even if you look at Kid Cable over in X-Men 2, like, that's not the same characterization, from before that we saw. I think this is kind of like a new established thing that, we're going to lean into Kid Cable really being a kid, being less lethal, and probably I got a feeling it's all for the sake of the relationship with the Summers family. That's what I'm thinking. Obviously, I would hope in Fallen Angels that he would get to be a little bit more, of that kind of crazy, warrior, cutthroat type guy. But now, knowing that Hill is not going to stay on the book for very long, I'm starting not to have hope in that. But we got to see what the next.
It's coming back to the book. It's just going to go on hiatus.
Right. Well, that's
the hiatus will be extended because they're double shipping Fallen Angels rather than just shipping it once in a month.
Right. Now, quick question on that, Wes. Was it confirmed that Hill's coming back, or was it confirmed that the book is returning? Because his quote was like,
Hill
the
said
book is
he's
returning in
coming
an
back.
interesting way. Okay, he's coming back. Okay, cool.
And then I posted something on Twitter that said it was disappointing, and someone was like, "Oh, I can't believe it," and he was like, "Chill out, I'm back. I'm coming back."
Okay. All right, cool. Well, that's good to know. All right, cool. But yeah, so I definitely feel you with the characterizations. I am like, being that I don't have an extensive history in Kwannon, and I definitely, even though I didn't love X-23's characterization per se over the years, I got enough of it to kind of at least know who they had been writing her as. I got enough of Kid Cable to kind of know who they had been writing him as. I know nothing about Kwannon, so I am very much just enjoying just honestly Kwannon and them just being two warriors that are kind of like on our side. But I do like the fact that the way that he is using them is, again, to kind of feed into Kwannon's character. She's starting to go from, hey, I need to regain who I am as a person, to, all right, I gotta lead these kids. They know about goodness more than me. All I know is pain, suffering, and killing. So I do like how where that part of it is going. So we'll see. Outside of that, a part that I really enjoyed was a reference from a book called Hagakure. It's like a kind of like a Japanese warrior philosophical book. I found out about the book through a movie called Ghost Dog by Jim Jarmusch years ago. Forrest Whitaker as the lead character, kind of basically a modern day samurai, if you will. But obviously, instead of a sword, he uses a gun. So I love how like he was in New York, he was in modern neighborhoods. He like didn't look like the traditional samurai. All of that was like so cool. But he followed these precepts like to the T. And Bryan Edward Hill dropped a huge reference to that. And that movie goes back, I want to say, to like 1998. 1999. So for me, all these years later, seeing that, and I just remember how much of an impact it made on me when I was younger and I was doing martial arts, taekwondo and jujitsu and judo, and I was really into kung fu movies, and I was super into hip hop and Wu-Tang, and RZA was in that movie. So all of those things coming together for me was like a nostalgia beat and hit me in the heart. Wes, was there anything within any of the like those little graphic things or any other specific writing parts that stood out to you?
You know, I haven't really liked a lot of the white pages, and this was interesting, but I don't know that it added a whole lot to the story or the flavor. You know, it added to the flavor, but I don't think it expanded the story. But what I did really like, and it's continued from the very first one, is the flashbacks, and I think that's been really effective. Although in the very first one, the first opening scene ties directly into the end, and that doesn't quite happen in this one. But there are a couple of flashbacks that are really interesting, explain the character, especially when she's been put out on the hit. She goes and takes this woman's husband out, and as she's taking him out, she can feel just how much he loves his wife and their unborn child, and she spares her life and tells her, get out of here. I'm going to put you here, and then you need to go as far away as possible because you're supposed to be killed as well. And you can see maybe there's some goodness in there. She's not all evil.
Right. Oh, man, I love that point that you made. And it's funny because it kind of parallels with my point, because in that point about Hagakure is talking about how, you as the servant, you know what I mean? You serve your master. It's foolish for you to have self-interest. You don't have the wisdom. Your wisdom is following the master. It's selfish to have self-interest. You serve. It's a very utilitarian. Like you are an instrument, you serve as the instrument. If who are you to judge who should live, who should die, what is good, what is bad? How, who are you to try to say that you could save the world? The world is already dead. When you accept death, you are truly free, and all of that stuff. So like, it's so funny. Like, I'm talking about that part, and you're talking about the part where she completely went against the code. Like you said, she felt how much the husband loved the wife. So instead of taking out the wife too, she lets the wife and the kid go. And she does all of that because of what was done in the first book. Her experience with her falling in love and her getting pregnant, and them killing the man that she loved and taking away her daughter, and the parallel with the butterfly. I'd like, that is the type of, like connected, thoughtful, thorough writing that I really, really enjoy. So Hill he's doing his homework. It was easily the most
effective scene as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I think it was the most relevant for sure, the most effective without a doubt in the book.
I was disappointed that we didn't get more Mr. Sinister this week. His characterization of Sinister in the last issue was so perfect. I was like, man, this is the Sinister I want in X-Men, and we get him for like one page, and he's kind of toying with her a little bit, but he doesn't really go on to her. So
he doesn't. And you know what? I'm starting to think, and not as an excuse for not getting more of him or whatever, but just like you saying that sparked an idea in my mind. I'm starting with, especially with how much Sinister likes to mess with genetics, genes, like the human mind and anatomy, the core of biology. and identity, I'm starting to think that he's gonna be behind Apoth. Like, maybe not Apoth, like itself, but I'm starting to think that he might have created this sentient being in whatever form it is to kind of go out there and wreak a little havoc, and honestly, all probably just to keep himself interested, because we all know that at the end of the day, if Sinister has an enemy, it's boredom. So I got a feeling that like he is tying into all of that just as much as everybody else. And I didn't get that until you said that, but now I'm starting to think, okay, Peace is an enemy to Kwannon, Psylocke, makes sense. Peace is an enemy to Laura, X-23, makes sense. Peace is an enemy to Cable. Kid Cable, okay, makes sense. They all come from war. What they know is war and rage. But Peace is also an enemy to Sinister. Sinister loves drama. He loves things to get into. He's a busybody. So if there is not anything beyond his normal workings and dealings that he arranged with Magneto and Professor X, there's not any of that work to do off top. He will create something. Like literally, he has the ability to create drama. He can create an enemy. He can create a hero. I'm starting to think that's what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Am I crazy, Wes? Am I onto something?
You know, I'm not really sure. There's so many things going on the X-Men, and it's going so fast. And Dane Barrett, one of our favorite viewers, he leaves some of the best comments. He's in our Discord server. You know, he said something yesterday. He's like, they need to get these other X-Men books away from X-Force because there's so much stuff going on that, and it's all tying right back to House of X and Powers of 10 that it's like occupying all my brain space. So I'm only thinking of like this, you know, all this stuff it's directly tying into this. Then you have this Fallen Angels book that's kind of coming around the same time. And it's doing its own thing. And I think cramping it together with some of these other stories, I think he has a point. I do think it's somewhat detracting probably reader interest or the ability to sit there and really go in and think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would easily agree. And me, I have X-Force #2 sitting right here. I intentionally, kind of for this reason, did not read this, and I got the Wolverine preview here from Ben Percy as well. I intentionally did not read all three in one sitting because, you know, especially with X-Force, it was like boom, boom, boom. It was like beat, 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 and this is a little bit more fluid in its transitions, and there's enough in both of them where I was like, if I feel like it's almost like sitting down and eating like ice cream, pie, and then having like a chocolate shake. It's like they're all good, but I'm gonna sit up here and I'm not gonna be able to appreciate each one individually if I just sit up here and consume them all. So I haven't read X-Force #2 yet, and I know I'm reading things out of order. I looked at the reading order. I haven't read that yet. New Mutants, I'm not actually picking up until Friday. I left that book there because I like Hickman, and I know I would have had to spank my hand just to stay away from that New Mutants. So I left that one at the shop along with
actually pretty good.
What'd you say?
New Mutants is a step up this week.
Oh, okay.
From the previous one. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Excited for tomorrow. But all that to say, it was very apparent when I showed up because I forgot 3 books were shipping. I went up there. I have 4 books waiting for me, including Criminal. And I was like, oh, I was only expecting 2 books. They're like, oh, no, you got 4 and 3 X-Men one. And I was like, these greedy bastards know it's Black Friday coming up, and they just rammed in 3 books on us. They did not have to do that. But anyway,
yeah, I think it was because really only X-Men and X-Force are really tying into House of X Powers of 10. And so when they're double shipping these books with those, it's kind of taking some of the air out of the sales.
Yep.
At least that's in my opinion.
And out of the interest. So bad tactic. I hope they learn from going forward. Stop doing this because 1, then it pushes you to be late on other books down the line. As we already know, some of the X-Men books are going to be late. 2, you're not drawing out your sales enough. I mean, maybe there's these sales quotas for the month or whatever that you're trying to hit hard. But at the end of the day, lengthen it out, because you can get more by spacing them out instead of just trying to pound them all in at one time. And then, like you said, Wes, it also takes the interest on others down. If you got a highlight action packed book like X-Force that's hitting hard, and people have been waiting for that because Hawks and Pox was hitting hard, and then you got a little bit more slow burns with some of these other books, it's gonna make it feel like people aren't as interested in them. So I think it's bad form. But all in all, this book at the and even at the end of it, I was very interested in what we saw on the last page, what things, and even the dialogue between everybody, how they're starting to learn how to trust each other and trust their instincts and their anger. So all in all, I really enjoyed it. I would say, if it personally for me, it was a step up from issue number 1 and holding back on the art. And then I really did enjoy how some of the writing went along. Wes, how are your overall thoughts, closing thoughts?
Like I said, I was hoping that the art was gonna hit with me. It's the same thing as what happened with Punisher. It's not my bag. I'm not really liking it. I do feel like it took a step back because they introduced the villain in the last issue. They didn't really go forward with it until maybe the last couple of pages, and he is really putting in a lot of effort into fleshing out Kwannon. And I think maybe it's going to take a little bit away from the other characters. And what was really surprising to me, I've read a lot of Bryan Hill comics. The second issue in almost all of his stories is always the best issue, because there's always a big event that drives the story forward. And it didn't happen this time because he was still investing that time. He was putting his capital into Kwannon rather than the whole story. So it'll be interesting if maybe the third issue in this story is when that happens. Very well could.
We will have to wait and see, and we'll let you guys know if that ends up being like a singular review, or if we'll check it out on OTB again. But we might try to switch it up for you guys, have something a little different. But thanks again, everybody, for joining Outside the Bleed. We appreciate it. Obviously, you guys know about the coffee. If you want to help support, we got some editing software bills coming up. X-Force review, wait on that. It is the holidays, but it's worth the wait. Just hang tight. Wes is going to break it down and give you his thoughts on it. And then expect some more Mandalorian and TV review type things coming out from my side. And I hope you guys all have a happy Thanksgiving. Wes, any final things to talk about outside of the Discord?
Well, we do have X-Men number 3 will be OTB next week. We're definitely going to be, if you like Criminal, we are 100% going to be hitting Criminal number 11 when that comic book finally comes out. That's going to be the big one with the big murder of Teague Lawless, I believe. And so we are going to start adding some other things in there because we do have interests outside of X-Men. Although I do love X-Men.
Yes, sir, indeed. So again, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will catch you guys later. Bleeding out, dancing out, blood on the dance floor.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.